So today I wanted to talk about the myths of change or healing or recovery. There's a myth that recovery or mental rehab training is the same thing as a support group. It's not. It can be totally different. There's all kinds of groups out there that call themselves a support group. And yeah, there's support and maybe like validation and people who can relate, but there's not a lot of recovery that I've seen really going on. Now, there are recovery groups and they have like a recovery program, and that's helpful, but it's really not the same thing as the mental rehab part. There's a lot of new brain science coming out that's actually proving what we've known all along in rehab, that the brain is plastic and you can change it. You can keep growing the positive things and lessen the negative things, and it can be trained. And it doesn't really have to take a whole lot of time or training. um, but it's not the same thing. The other myth is that real change takes years to have some kind of breakthrough or decades for a major transformation. And I've seen people with huge trauma, all kinds of PTSD, and traumas that happened years and years ago, and traumas that happened quite recently. And I've seen real healing and real change and transformation, and people have breakthroughs without a lot of digging into the content, without a lot of like emotional breakdowns or catharsis. And it can happen quite quickly, like right before your eyes quickly. So that's a myth that it takes years and years, like of therapy or some other process to change. If it's taking that long, there's something missing there. Another myth is that real change is painful and requires some sort of breakdown. Like back in the old days, in therapy, we thought we had to completely break the person's ego defenses down and just kind of have them a puddle on the floor and then sort of rebuild them up. And it really didn't work. People resented it and had, their trauma re-triggered many times, and that doesn't work either. It doesn't have to be painful. It doesn't mean that you won't have moments of maybe some grief or some relief or a release of emotions, but it does not require some huge breakdown. And then another myth is that you have plenty of time and you'll figure it out on your own. This is the most dangerous myth because we don't have plenty of time. Life is short, it's limited, and the truth is that problems get worse if they're not attended to. And figuring out on your own, it doesn't always work either. I had to have plenty of help and kind of learn from lots of different areas or schools of thought to pull things together, and that takes a lot of time and energy and money. So it's nice when you have them all pulled together for you. You can have changes quite rapidly. Another thing I was going to talk about was, what I say is you don't need another forgiveness theory or a therapist who doesn't get it, who doesn't understand personality disorders and trauma and family abuse, and is, hesitant to diagnose other people that you're having problems with, like toxic people. But well, it just, it almost makes it worse when you find a therapist who doesn't get it. Therapy is good for processing and talking and maybe insight, but a lot of the times they don't really give you the tools or techniques that you can take home and use on yourself. Another thing that doesn't really work that I've ever seen of all my research is, listening to certain sound waves or, doing creative videos with really pretty pictures of, things you want, or, maybe those things help you relax, or maybe they help inspire you, or maybe they help activate the brain a little bit or calm the brain down and things like that. But there's not a whole lot of control there or rhyme or reason. You don't really know what's working, if anything's working at all. It's kind of a feel-good thing. And what also doesn't work is just trying to get pumped up and motivated and positive thinking, and doing gratitude lists, which that's helpful to be in gratitude, but it's not the answer. It requires a lot of like self-will. You have to kind of push and force your way to think this, and sometimes you're just exhausted from doing that, really. So here's the facts as I see them. Forgiveness can wait. The truth is, forgiveness is not even a result of healing anyway. It's it's a or sorry no it's a result of healing. You work on your healing and it happens naturally as a result. It's not the cause of healing. You don't go for forgiveness first. So forgiveness can wait. What you can do instead is have compassion and forgiveness for yourself for all these things that you have to or think you have to forgive for. Have compassion for yourself for having gone through that. And, I'm amazed at how many Facebook groups I see people saying my therapist told me to come here to look for support, because, those things, they might be monitored somewhat, but there's no real structure or program or recovery there. There's just some support, and there's, sometimes there's abuse or bullying or just, victim blaming. Just all sorts of things can go wrong there. You're just dealing with, a segment of the public that kind of came together, and a lot of people are even anonymous, and so you're not sure. You might get some validation, which can mean a lot if you're feeling alone. But don't count on just a Facebook support group. I already talked about the gamma sounds and the bilateral beats and all this mind stuff. I was kind of into that for a little while, but I didn't really get anything out of it, and I felt like I really just wasted time and money. Positive thinking is great, but how do you do it? Like, how do you stick to it or make yourself do it when you have all these other stresses and upsets and negative thinking going on, and you've got a backlog of things? And how, how do you know it works? Like, again, how can I use it today to make a change that I can really count on? Support groups and recovery programs are great, but again, they take a long time. They don't really give you your power or control or show you how the brain rehab tricks work that you need, that could save you months and years of sitting around trying to recover. Mastering your psychology is knowing how to use your brain to make a change in there, to rewire that self-sabotage switch, is how I like to put it. A transformation with mindful communication with the parts of you that are generating your problems or signals is a really cool trick that can make you feel like you're finally in the cockpit of your brain rocket, like you can take charge of these things. So I'm going to give you a quick little exercise in mindful communication with the parts of you that are generating anything negative or stressful. So the first, there's kind of three parts to this, just to kind of get you used to it. The first is to a look and touch exercise. So just look around the room and pick anything that you want to look at. And in your mind's eye, I want you to pretend that you're literally touching it, and just feel what the edges feel like, the texture. Just see what it feels like. Just imagine you're touching it, and you kind of get a sense if it's smooth or rough or bumpy or sharp or, grainy or whatever the texture is. So with your mind's eye, you can actually feel something without touching it with your hands. So now imagine something that's not in the room. Let's imagine like a tree, and imagine again that you're touching the bark on the tree. Like, really get into rubbing your hands in your mind's eye on the tree bark. Does it feel spongy, or hard or rough, bumpy, the little ridges and whatnot? This is the same technique you use when you want to feel a thought. When you're feeling a thought or a feeling or something that is triggered in you and it comes up, look at it, feel where it's in your body, tune into it and kind of feel, what does that feel like, where it's at. And if you do that for a few minutes and then let that relax or loosen up or even sort of dissipate a little bit, um, it's an active kind of mindfulness where you're literally feeling things with your mind, and you're actually tuning into a part of you that generated that, and you're paying attention to it. And that's what it needed all along, was for you to pay attention. Now from that place you can take a lot of different directions. You can communicate with that part. You can just, help it to dissipate all the way and let it go. But when you revisit the issue that makes you upset, you'll notice that you're calmer about it just by doing that. And, people who have been in brain science or mental, rehab have done this for a long time with lots of interesting results. It always has a healing and a calming effect. So I hope you can at least begin to get a little sense of what it's like to use your brain for a change in a whole new, different way that can help rehab and recover. And then what you do is start to create those new neural networks of the positive. And this is where the wellness plan comes into play so importantly, because if you have these little things that you do each day or each week, you're doing positive things that inspire you, that feel good. Those things add up and they create stronger and stronger pathways in the brain. And it tells your whole body and system and mind and heart and energy that, I'm worth it, I'm valuable, and have fun with it. Do art stuff, music, dancing, laughter, add all these things, give your brain a little hit of dopamine, so to speak. And so that's going to help create this new pathway towards wellness and creating a positive life. And when the negative stuff comes up, just go within for a minute and feel it and let it relax. And that can bring you quite a lot of relief. So until next time, take good care and take good action for yourself today.